We are on the cusp of a major social change. Do you feel it? Even if you don't, make no mistake, change is coming, and it is going to be unforgettable. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Hart, and here on Prime Spark, where we work with and on behalf of women over 55, I want to help you find that spark that will ignite your way forward, reflect your gifts to the world, and illuminate your path through this next stage of life. Through these podcast conversations, I hope to inspire you to see how you can make a significant contribution to some of the gnarly problems that are facing us right now. Join me, and together let's discover our Prime Spark.
Hi, and welcome to Prime Spark. I'm Sarah Hart, and I'm so happy you're here with us. Prime Spark is designed for women over 50 or close, with a goal to help us all live our happiest, most fulfilling, and productive lives, now and in the future. The mission of Prime Spark is to change the way our society sees and treats older women. That's a big mission, which only means we all need to be involved and we need to get going now. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Marjorie Nass, a woman whose work I greatly admire. With a journey rooted in personal transformation, Marjorie made the courageous decision to step away from the demands of corporate life. In her quest for balance, she discovered the profound healing benefits of yoga, meditation, breathwork, and Ayurveda, the sister science of yoga. Through these holistic practices, alongside mindful nutrition and movement, Marjorie overcame various health challenges. She learned that managing life's pressures is key to restoring both physical and emotional well-being. Now, with over 25 years of experience, Marjorie dedicates her time to empowering women to navigate the changes of perimenopause, menopause, and post-menopause. She offers supportive classes and workshops through her online coaching, available for both groups and individuals. Marjorie shares simple yet transformative teachings that encourage women to take charge of their health and to help women embrace this chapter of life with confidence and vitality. Welcome, Marjorie. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for that introduction.
You're welcome. So in getting started, let me just ask you, do you experience getting older? And if you do, what is that experience? And if you don't, why is it that you think that you don't?
My experience in getting older, that feels like I prioritize what's important to me. And in Ayurveda, which is yoga sister science, there are really 3 phases of life. And as we get past 50, we're really approaching this different phase of life. Our choices can become different. We recognize that we're in the second half of our life. And what do we really want to do? So that's something that when I was 50, I realized that I wanted to move to a warm place from the Northeast. So I moved to San Diego. I lifted up my life and I moved to San Diego. And that was something I was not able to do when I was in my 40s. Like I look at it and I was like, yeah, I was thinking about it for a few years. So I think priorities tend to change and we can be more proactive. And what is it that we really want?
That's so interesting, Marjorie. I didn't know that about you. And when I was 50, I left my corporate job and moved from Connecticut to San Francisco.
Uh-huh.
We have a very common movement there.
Very much so.
So I love the work you're doing. What inspired you to become a holistic perimenopause, menopause coach? And how has your journey influenced your coaching practice?
Yeah. So when I started my journey, I had all kinds of, and this was in my late 20s and 30s, I had all kinds of physical and emotional issues. I was always getting sick. I had terrible digestive, irritable bowel syndrome, and I had a lot of depression and anxiety. And so I was on this corporate treadmill that I didn't know how to get off of. It was, the late 90s, and that was really all that I knew. And so the first time I took a yoga class, somebody had recommended it, and I took it at the gym. So there weren't like yoga studios on every corner like there are now. And my nervous system was such that when the teacher had us lay down on our back, I lasted about 3 minutes and I could not settle myself. And I ran out of that class. And I went back to running on the treadmill or the Stairmaster, listening to the radio, watching TV, and reading the newspaper all at the same time. And I recognized that it sounds very old, because it is, because it's 30 years ago. And then, I continued not to feel well, and somebody else suggested that I try yoga. And I went to a different environment. It was a teacher's home at that time. She had like 4 or 5 people in the class. And I walked out of that class and I felt better than I had in a long time. And the more I practiced yoga, the better I felt. My digestive issues basically disappeared. I felt more calm, I felt more in my body, and I felt more confident in my body. So that's really where my journey started. And I loved it so much that I decided to become a yoga teacher to share what I knew. And it was very much a focus on alignment-based therapeutic yoga. I quickly specialized in that. And then when I learned about Ayurveda, it means science of life. That's the translation from Sanskrit. Then my health got even better. My sleep got better. My digestion got even better. So I started to incorporate that into my clients' lives, because I saw what a transformation it had given to me. And when I went through perimenopause, I didn't have any symptoms. And then menopause was like not a big issue for me at all. So I recognized that because I had been living this life for 8, 10 years, that something was creating more balance in my body. And I wanted to share that. And many of my clients I'd had who were in their 40s or 30s when they started, they were getting to the perimenopause stage. And if they were already having symptoms, these teaching helped. And some of the clients that I'm still in touch with who are in their, early 40s are like, it's not a big deal. I'm not having a big deal. So I want to share this because it's not inevitable. I spoke with another woman the other day, and she's like, yeah, this is what my mother told me that it is. You're not the same person as your mother. It's not necessarily hereditary. So in living a different way, you can have a different result.
I think many people, I think that the things that you're doing are much more readily available now than when you first started, and much more accepted, which is all very positive. And there are still people, I think, who would be surprised that yoga can have such an effect on physical beyond alignment of the body. I think people know that, but beyond that, I think that would be a surprise to people.
I agree. And I want to share a couple of reasons about why that is. So one is the breath. Most people are not breathing optimally. And if we're not breathing optimally, it's going to affect our digestion. It's going to affect our ability to sleep, and it affects every function of the body. Not breathing properly makes us tired, and it makes us less focused. So even if you're just focusing on your breathing in a very gentle yoga class, you're going to get so many benefits. There are chair yoga classes. There's something called Yoga Nidra, where you're just focusing on your breath and you're letting your body go. So allowing your nervous system to get out of fight or flight and into rest, restore, and digest can change your health immensely just from that one thing. Through the breathing, when the diaphragm is moving properly, our digestion is going to work well. And in fact, that's what the first benefit that I had was, that my irritable bowel immediately, I'd been dealing with it since I was a teenager, 15, 20 years, and it just like vanished. Like it was 95% better. It's unbelievable. Like I was on medication for a while. I tried all kinds of eliminating all kinds of foods, and that's what did it. So I know this really, really works, and it sounds so simple. And I've helped other people with digestive issues as well with some other practices.
That's interesting because when you say if the diaphragm is working well, that might make it more understandable to people because obviously your diaphragm, I'm going, and nobody can see me, I'm going up and down. Your diaphragm, does it go right to your small intestine?
So when we take a breath into our belly, which is optimal, most people are breathing more into their chest. So when the lungs fill from the bottom, then the diaphragm goes down. And then we exhale, the diaphragm goes back up. I'm using my hands as well. So the digestive area has more room. So it's fight or flight is reduced with breathing. That could be at any time, even when you're not eating. But if you're breathing before you eat, your digestion is going to be improved. And I just want to say that there's a lot about nutrition in menopause and what you can do and macros and this, that, and the other. But if we're eating when we are anxious or when we're rushed, it doesn't matter what we're eating. We're not going to get the full benefits of that food if we're not digesting and assimilating it properly.
Okay, I want to take some of those things one thing at a time, but I want to, before I forget, ask you. I suspect a lot of people know now, but some people may not. Explain what Ayurveda is.
Okay, so Ayurveda translates as science of life, and it's part of it's yoga's wellness science. So the Vedas, those are the texts that were in yoga, and Ayurveda is science of life. So Ayurveda is very much about aligning with nature's rhythms, and it's 5,000 years old, and there are specific practices about aligning with nature's rhythm. That means when you eat, when you sleep, how you're eating, all of these things, and the awareness of the breath. So, for example, it's wintertime now. I'm in San Diego. It's cold at night. Most people think it's hot here all the time. It's like in the 40s at night. And it's not a time to be eating cold food. We want to balance the season with warm, easy to digest food. I spoke with another woman. She thought, I'm eating raw salads every day, this, that, and the other. And I was like, try eating some cooked vegetables. And she felt better almost immediately. So those are the kinds of things we look at, all the qualities, where something's dry or moist, something that is heavy or light, and we look to balance those through aligning with nature's rhythms and the season and the day.
How do you balance sleep with nature when, I mean, we're in the same, we'll have the same rising and setting of sun. So if I went to bed when the sun went down, I would go to bed at like 5:30 in the afternoon. And then I wouldn't get up until like, I don't know, 7:30, 8 o'clock. So that doesn't make sense. I mean, you can't live that way.
No, you can't live that way. And we're at different latitudes, and we're in a different season. But what we can do, and this is where, for most of our existence, there hasn't been light at night. So one of the things that we can do is lower the lights at night and not to have too much stimulation from screens right before we go to bed. It's also helpful to have a bedtime and a bedtime ritual, a nighttime ritual. So some women are watching TV in bed. They are going to sleep at different times every night. They're eating dinner at different times. So that consistency of a rhythm, of a daily rhythm and an evening routine makes sense. Now, you might notice that you feel better if you're sleeping more in the winter. We require more sleep in the winter because it's darker. And in summer, there are some places in the north, like in Montana, for example, it doesn't get dark until like 10 o'clock at night. And it gets light. I was in London once in the summertime. The sun gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning and it sets at 10 o'clock at night. And that's okay. It's okay when it's not getting dark until 8:30 at night to stay up a little bit later. But just being aware of those rhythms and really listening to your body. Most women have not developed the skill to listen to when their body is tired. And that might be at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, which is much earlier than what they're used to. Most people find it hard. Many women find it hard to get up in the morning. It's always going to be easier to go to sleep earlier than to get up earlier.
I find it, you said this, I find it works best for me if I eat, specifically dinner, if I eat dinner at pretty much the same time, if I go to bed at pretty much the same time. I mean, it can't be exact because stuff happens. And if I get up pretty much the same time. And especially getting up, if I do that, I just wake up. I mean, I don't always, like some mornings it's really hard to get up for, and I don't know why, because I went to sleep early, but I'm still hard to get up. But I think that our body likes consistency.
100%. You hit the nail on the head. That's exactly right. There's a rhythm. And when you have that rhythm, you get hungry at a certain time and you're ready to go to sleep at a certain time. Many parents, their kids have a bedtime. It's like a whole bedtime routine. And this is when you go to sleep because that's what works. I don't have my own children. I want to say that, but it's that ritual. And we don't grow out of that. That ritual is going to help us sleep. And for so many women in perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, they are struggling with their sleep. And just having that routine, that alone can make a big difference. I have women track, when I work with women, I have them track when they're eating dinner, what their routine is like between dinner and going to bed, what time they go to bed, what time they fall asleep. I know this sounds like a lot, but you just check it out. And how many times they're waking up in the middle of the night with hot flashes or having trouble getting back to sleep. There is such a correlation. Women see it in like 3 or 4 days. They're like, oh my God, I never realized that this was affecting me so much. And having good night's sleeps, it's, the body likes that rhythm. And that's one of the biggest things we can take away with Ayurveda. When I first started studying Ayurveda, it wasn't a good sleeper. Even when I was a little kid, I started listening to my body and I was tired at 8:30. Because I was getting up at 5 and I was running around teaching yoga. And I always pushed myself to just stay awake a little bit. And the first time I went to sleep at 8:30 and I recognized that not everybody can do it, I slept until 6 and I woke up and I was like, it's a miracle. I never had slept the entire night, I don't think, in my life. And it was just that my body was ready to go to sleep. And when I was sleeping, when I was tired, then I got that full night's sleep. So for most of us, we've been pushing through it. We've been pushing through fatigue. We've been pushing through hunger a lot of the time. We're eating when we're not hungry. And I use the example of having to go to the bathroom. So if you're driving in a car, you're like, oh, there's an exit here, next exit 20 miles. You're like, oh, I'll wait till the next exit. Or you'll wait till you finish an email. That's ignoring your body's message. And just honoring that is like you start to notice the signals, and that becomes something that you listen to more than what you're doing rather than what you're doing.
Interesting. So do you think when you work a lot with women with perimenopause and menopause, do you think women, if they follow some of the things that you teach, do you think most women can do menopause naturally without medication of any kind, or does it not always work?
Well, it depends. And I'm not a doctor in terms of the hormones, but I do know that the earlier women start to adopt some of these practices, the less intense they will be. And I've worked with many women who think they're going to have to go on hormones at some point, either because all their friends will have or what they're expecting, and they actually don't. Maybe in 10 years, they'll have to reevaluate that. So I won't say that most women, but I always say most of these things are free. Most of these things you can do without having to do a ton of research. I know women are focusing on so many things that are complicated, and these are simple that can be incorporated little by little. I'm not saying like go to sleep, 3 hours early. Like, I'm not saying that at all. It's about small little changes and listening to your body. Most women don't realize they're in perimenopause until they're 3, 4, 5 years in. And a lot of doctors will, because they don't have so much training, will say, oh, you're too young for that, when in fact, that's what's already happening.
What's the first sign for a lot of women for perimenopause if they don't know?
So one of the first signs is change in cycle. So in your menstrual cycle, it might get longer, it might get shorter, it might get heavier, it might get lighter. And that is one of the first signs as hormones begin to change as we enter. That's one of the first signs. Sleep is a big one. Usually by the time a woman has a hot flash or a night sweat, that's something that everybody knows about. But if you're having trouble with sleep, everything's going to be affected. Your mood and irritability is going to be affected if you're not sleeping well, and your ability to focus and concentrate, and brain fog, as it's called. So it often starts with sleep, which is why it's the very first thing that I work with women on, one of the very first things.
And for sleep, is your recommendation to go to do the ritual so that you go to sleep at the same time every night?
100%.
Relatively, yeah.
100%. The screens, a lot of people know about the screens and the light from the screens. I take it a step further. Versus reading a book. If we're watching something, it doesn't matter if it's upsetting or whether it's entertaining, it's stimulating us. It's getting us thinking. We're like in another world. And if you're in the news, this is our world. So it's like the world is coming at you. If you're reading a book, it's a whole different situation. And often when you're reading a book, you'll start to fall asleep because your mind's not as measured. And I was talking to a friend the other day. She's like, because I read a lot. I fall asleep every time I'm reading. And I was like, that's because you're tired. And when you're watching TV, that you're tired because you're focusing on something else. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm thinking about my night ritual is I get in bed and read. And that's when I get to do, I don't know who made this rule. That's when I get to do my fun reading. And I can read whatever I want to at that point. It doesn't have to have anything to do with work. In fact, it can't have anything to do with work. But what I find is, and I read a lot of mysteries. That's one of my favorite genres. Yeah. What I find is I get about 3, 4, if I'm lucky, 5 paragraphs and fall asleep, which means the next night I have to go back and reread it. So it takes a very long time to read a book because I read it and then I reread it and then I read some more and then I reread that. And so I know that reading puts me right to sleep.
If I may add to that, you're tired.
Yeah.
So your body is telling you to go to sleep. So if you use some of what I suggest and got a half an hour, started reading a half an hour earlier, you might be able to read more. If it's a mystery and it's compelling, falling asleep means that you're tired. And most of us don't realize how tired we are, whether we're depending on caffeine or just pushing through or just ignoring it. But what you said is actually really good because that's a message from your body.
Yes. Yes. I push myself through it because I want to keep reading. This is my time to read. I want to keep reading. I don't want to fall asleep. I want to keep reading, which is just so silly. Start reading a half an hour before. That's a good suggestion.
Let me know what happens.
I will. So tell me about your philosophy of mind-body connection. You talk about the mind-body connection. What is your philosophy on that?
So the philosophy is there actually is no differentiation. It's all connected, inextricably connected. whatever we're going through in our life, I had a lot of loss within a very short period of time several years ago. And there wasn't, everything was affected, my movement, my ability to sleep. And we often, think about like the psychological ramifications of it. And like the worst part of it, where you feel like you can't eat and your heart hurts and all of that. But there are residual things that go on months later, many months later, it could be, that is because you haven't processed some sort of emotion. Personally, for me, I had some issues in my mobility that all ties back to this time. It's fascinating. And I've worked really hard doing the work. So where some people might have just looked at the physical and the mobility and the movement, I took it a step further with help to say, this is actually your body holding on to something that it hasn't processed. So the more mindful you can be about, that it's not like mind body, it's everything. It's just everything. Your body will give you messages that have been going on for a long time. And also, if you haven't been listening to the messages that your body's been sending you, those messages will get louder. So there's no woman that all of a sudden, like menopause hits, like all of a sudden. There have been signs along the way that the body is changing. And if we are pushing ourselves in the same way that we did in our late 30s, early 40s, things will catch up and the experience of menopause is going to be more. For women who have not been listening to their body's messages and have continued at the same pace throughout their late 30s into their 40s and 50s, menopause is going to be more difficult. Without learning to manage the pressures of life through some of these actions that I've been talking about, these little steps, the body's out of balance. Those hot flashes are going to be more intense. Sleep is going to be harder. And when we're not sleeping well, everything's impacted: digestion, moods, and ability to be sharp and mentally aware. So that's what I want to say about having the ability to go through menopause without extreme symptoms. It is possible. It's not inevitable. Even if all your friends are having.
Yeah. Do you have a success story for us?
I have such a great success story. The woman that I've most recently worked with. She's an extremely successful real estate realtor, and she came to me. She's super, super healthy. She has her own garden. She has her own vegetable garden. And she found that she was having heart palpitations. Now, this actually is a symptom of perimenopause and menopause. She was a few years into menopause. Scary, right? So she went to the cardiologist. They did all kinds of tests. They could not find anything that was wrong. And so all of that can be, it can be similar to a panic attack, heart palpitations, but heart palpitations are actually similar in the cause as a hot flash. It's like a surge of hormones that comes up. So we started working together. What she was doing was like she was waking up and going right into work mode, right into work mode. And, it takes some time to look at what priorities are. How can we change? A lot of women say, I can't change. Well, if your goal is to be healthy for the next 30, 40 years, that's a strong goal so that you can run around with your friends and grandchildren if you have them. And so we worked on creating morning rituals for her and evening rituals for her, and putting some things into perspective about work, which she's been so successful at, and which she actually can become more successful at if she has these tools. We also tweaked her food, not so much what she was eating, but when she was eating it and how she was eating it, so that she was more nourished and not hungry for half the day. And, we worked together for 6 months. And she felt so empowered with all the tools that she had, you know, waking up, having a mindfulness practice, starting out the day for herself rather than the world and work coming at her, and how she set up for a very different day. And recognizing that these things, which seemingly were going to make everything take longer, actually allowed her to be even more productive. After we started working together, she never had a heart palpitation again.
That's a wonderful example. That's a wonderful example. So, Marjorie, do you work with women in postmenopause? Because a lot more is written about perimenopause and menopause than postmenopause.
Yeah. I want to clarify this because the language is not quite accurate. So perimenopause can last 8 to 10 years. It can start as early as a woman's late 30s and continue through the 40s for some women. Menopause is 1 year to the day of your last period. It's one day. And everything after that is postmenopause. But most people are calling the whole thing menopause, most women. So I say postmenopause because that's really everything after. And that could be for the rest of your life. You're really technically postmenopause. Many women are still having symptoms in their 60s, late 50s, 60s, and even longer. I speak to women and they're like, oh, yeah, I still have hot flashes. I've had hot flashes for 10 years. There are things that you can still do about that. So I absolutely work with women in postmenopause, 100%.
That's really interesting because I could imagine that women in their 60s and 70s, for example, if they have, well, hot flashes are pretty obvious, but if they have other symptoms of menopause, wouldn't take those symptoms to be menopause because they would think they were through it. And so they know that those symptoms are menopause.
Well, for things like hot flashes, they recognize that that was what they've been having for years. So they might still, I spoke with a number of women in their late 60s in the past week, that they're still, they're still considering that they're in menopause, even though they haven't had a period in a long time. But some of the, having these tools, having these practices is great for everybody, because empowering yourself with saying, I'm learning how to listen to my body 100%. I can make these changes, and those tools are going to empower me through my 60s, through my 70s, through my 80s, because nothing changes in terms of those rhythms of your life. And again, when the body has that regularity around food and around sleep and around habits, it just can be in less of a fear, fight, or flight response. Because without managing those pressures of life and learning that, there's always going to be something that's out of balance, more likely to be out of balance.
So we're coming to the end, Marjorie, but tell me, what message would you like to leave with women regarding their journey through perimenopause and menopause?
My message is that symptoms are not inevitable. And when you're feeling better physically, emotionally, and mentally, you can show up for your family, your friends, your community, your loved ones more. And when you're feeling better, age becomes less relevant. It's like, but you have to feel well. For what, for women who are tired, they're like, I'm too tired to go to XYZ with my friends, or I don't want to have a hot flash. I'm not going to events, or I'm too tired. So the world is missing out on you. We need women, and showing up healthy and vibrant is a message to the world that that's what a 50 something, 60 something, 70 something can be.
I could imagine there are women who will be listening to this who, when you say symptoms are not inevitable, would roll their eyes and say, oh, yeah, give me a break.
Okay.
You must run into that.
There are definitely people that are skeptical, and there are women that are so skeptical that they would prefer no judgment, they would prefer to take a supplement or get a pill or go on the hormones immediately because they don't believe it, because everybody around them has been suffering and joking and complaining, to be quite honest. And so if you're listening and you're rolling your eyes, I would just say you have nothing to lose. Like, you have nothing to lose by going to sleep earlier for a week before you're going to the doctor, and empowering yourself to say, my message is that you have the power to listen to your body. You can advocate for yourself. If somebody's not listened to you, you have the power to advocate for yourself and make changes that, if you're going into a system that is only looking at what's wrong and not what's working right, that's going to take you on a different path.
What impact, as compared with sleep, which you've highlighted a lot, and I believe you, as compared with sleep, how important is exercise and nutrition?
Okay. So exercise is a name that I don't really like. I call it movement. When people think about exercising, they often think about going to the gym and weights and cardio and all of that. And so what's more important is movement, is moving all the time. So not sitting for longer than an hour, preferably a half an hour. Moving, you can dance a little bit, you can take a walk around your house or around the block. Getting outside and getting that movement is 100% important. It's got to be in there. If you're not moving, you're not going to be breathing properly. 100%. Nutrition obviously is important. You know, the basics: eat mostly plants or animals that ate the plants, staying away from anything that's in a box or just a wrapper is something super simple. But what's as important as nutrition is how you're eating, when you're eating, why you're eating, and where you're eating. So I think I said it earlier. You could be eating the most balanced, organic, from the garden meal. But if you are stressed, if you are not breathing, if you are standing up, if you are sitting at your computer and on your phone, it doesn't matter. It's going to be a waste, quite frankly.
Interesting. I think you probably just described the lives of a lot of women, because so many women I talk to are about 110% busy and trying to do at least two things at the same time.
Yeah.
And often it's eating and talking or doing email or texting or whatever.
There's no doing that. And I have women, and this is what I say to them. If you're one of those women and you're listening, do you take time to go to the bathroom? You're not going to the bathroom while you're on. Well, I don't know. Taking time to go to another place to go to the bathroom. Nobody's going to fault you for that. You can take 5 or 10 minutes to step away from your desk and eat in the same way. That alone is going to help your digestion. It's going to help your focus. I know we're used to doing a million things at once, but it's not serving you. It's not serving you, especially if you're spending a lot of time thinking about your nutrition. It's not going to be as effective if you don't look at how you're eating.
Well, I think of the woman you were talking about with her own garden. She probably was eating much more nutritious vegetables than a lot of us are.
No. Exactly. And she was still having those palpitations. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's our time today. Please join us again. You can find our Prime Spark podcast on every popular outlet. Find out more about Prime Spark at primesparkwomen.com. Thank you so much to my guest, Marjorie Nass. And don't forget, you can find her at, where would you like them to go to find you, Marjorie?
So you can find me on my website, marjorienass.com. I'm sure Sarah will have the spelling of that in the show notes. And mostly I'm on Instagram. That's the best place on social to find me right now. And I would love to support you in any way that I can. You can also send me a message on Facebook. But Sarah, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and to reach your audience.
Oh, you're welcome. This was great fun, Marjorie. Thank you. So it's Marjorie Nass, Nass, and it's all together. There's no anything in between it. MarjorieNass.com, and it will be in the show notes. Thank you for being with us. Spread tolerance and love. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to stay updated, you can head over to my website, primesparkwomen.com, and get my free Spark Guide, 7 questions to ignite your spark, to help you discover your own spark. See you in the next episode.